Hello, Canyon lovers. I'm Brian Special, and this is the Grand Canyon Hiker Dude Show presented by Bright Angel Outfitters for one-of-a-kind Canyon-themed t-shirts, sweatshirts, and hoodies, plus our soon-to-be-released Rim2Rim day pack, and plenty of resources for hiking the canyon like videos, this podcast, and our all-new Grand Canyon Shade Tracker. Please check out brightangeloutfitters.com. We do it for the love of the canyon. Okay, well, just about every experienced Grand Canyon hiker I've ever spoken with has a story about a serious problem they encountered in the canyon. And it's always something they hadn't thought of or never saw coming, and it left them humbled and even more hyper-focused on preparation and making sure it doesn't happen again. Let's just say that I'm comforted by those stories because I know I'm not alone. Last summer, I unknowingly created my own story of a rim-to-rim hike that in its worst moments had pretty much convinced me that I wasn't going to make it out. And had it not been for a stroke of luck, I'm still not 100% certain that I would have. It was on July 3rd, the time of year when hiking in the canyon is just about universally considered to be a very, very bad idea. But I had a plan. The day before, my wife and I drove from our home in Phoenix to the Jacob Lake Inn, which is about 45 miles from the North Rim and the North Kaibab trailhead. We absolutely love Jacob Lake. It's a motel that probably hasn't changed much in 50 years. It's nestled in the pines with the only restaurant for miles and their famous ginormous cookies that you have to try. Maybe you've heard about them. They're a must. We spent the night, we had breakfast, and then we drove to the North Rim late the next morning. My plan was to start my hike at 2:30 in the afternoon, which I knew would guarantee me some shade on North Kaibab and especially through the box, and then darkness for the climb up South Kaibab. Just throw the headlamp on and get to work. Even better, it was a near full moon, so I was looking forward to that as well. While we waited for 2:30 to get there, we did a little sightseeing, wandered around the lodge area, and just really enjoyed the North Rim, which, if you've never been, has a much more relaxed, uncrowded vibe than the South Rim does. The North Rim's really a vibe all in its own. Then around 2 o'clock, we headed for North Kaibab, with the plan being for my wife to drop me off and then drive around to meet me at the South Rim when I finished 8 or 9 hours later. So that sets the scene. From here, I'm going to read word for word the account of that rim-to-rim that I wrote in the days after the hike. And truth be told, I haven't even looked at this since. I haven't read one word of it since I wrote it. I knew it's something that I would, want to remember what happened, and I knew I'd want to share it someday. But honestly, I was a little embarrassed after this was all over, and so I haven't even gone back and read this thing. So I'm going to do that now, and I'm going to read it aloud to all of you as I relive this experience. Not sure how this is going to go. But I hope you find some value in it. That was the whole point of me writing this out. It was a horrible experience, and I hoped by writing it out I would remember everything and then be able to share it someday. And now that we've got this podcast, I'm going to do that. So here goes, in my own words, from the days after a summer rim-to-rim. This is a long story, but I hope you find value in it. I'm checking my pride at the door for this one because I hope it might help others avoid the dangerous and potentially life-threatening situation I put myself in Saturday night on South Kaibab. For background, I'm an experienced canyon hiker, once a month at minimum, and I've done about every possible combination on the corridor trails multiple times. I'm 50, I live in Phoenix, and I'm accustomed to the heat. I do intense hikes nearly every day. I am relatively fast and fit. I do Bright Angel to South Kaibab, rim to river in under 6 hours. All this to say that what happened to me Saturday night was the most humbling and terrifying hiking experience of my life, and a reminder that the canyon can hurt or even kill you if you aren't very, very careful, especially in the summertime. Okay, so Saturday was my first rim-to-rim of the season. North Kaibab to South Kaibab. I started at 2:30 p.m. on North Kaibab. That in itself may sound crazy, but it's really not. My goal was to be climbing out in the dark under the almost full moon, thus avoiding the heat for the hardest part of the hike, something I've done on South Kaibab to Bright Angel hikes the last 2 months. I found this to be absolutely glorious, and I prefer it to the traditional before sunrise starts in the summer months. There was some direct sun going down North Kaibab, but it's the North Rim, so it wasn't too hot. There was a mix of sun and shade after Roaring Springs, but by the time I got to the box, it was totally shaded and quite pleasant. I made great time, for me, getting to Phantom Ranch in just over 4 hours. I filled up on water at the river, thought about changing my plan and going up Bright Angel instead due to the availability of water, but ultimately decided to stick to my plan and go up South Kaibab, a route I prefer to Bright Angel and one I have done numerous times before and thus knew how much water I needed and figured that I would be just fine. I had a 2-liter bladder and a 24-ounce bottle for electrolytes and have always finished this 3-ish hour climb with water left over. But on this day, it would turn out I didn't have enough. For the past few months, I have been wearing a heart rate monitor on a chest strap, which I use to monitor my heart rate continuously on my watch. I have not done this going up South Kaibab before, and I think this contributed to the problems I ran into. I was trying to stay in a lower, slower zone for the entire hike out, something I'd successfully done on South Kaibab to Bright Angel trips. But on Bright Angel, it's more of a gradual climb until you get to Devil's Corkscrew, so it's easier to stay in a lower zone until then. On South Kaibab, the climb is steep and relentless the moment you cross Black Bridge, and it doesn't let up. So my heart rate spiked into a higher zone immediately, and instead of just going with it, I was feeling great and could have pushed ahead in the higher zones, but instead I was so hell-bent on bringing it down, that heart rate, that I was mixing up my pace too much and apparently expending a lot of energy in doing so. I'd slow so much that my rate would go down and then speed back up to a normal pace, and it would spike. I was so frustrated. It all meant that I wasn't paying enough attention to my water intake, and it was much higher than usual. Even though I was hiking in shade and then darkness with very reasonable temperatures, I was burning through my water far too quickly. I realized I didn't have enough when I got to just past tip-off, which is 4.5 miles still from the top, and began rationing. Oh boy. As I got closer to Skeleton Point, 3 miles from the top, and worked my way up those severe switchbacks, some pretty serious nausea was setting in, and I drank the last of my precious sips of water. My pace was painfully slow, though this time not intentionally. It was because I felt horrible. Mainly sick to my stomach, but a tad dizzy as well, which I thought was odd. I still thought I'd be fine. It's only 3 more miles, right? But was starting to get concerned as I passed Skeleton and was feeling worse and worse. I was genuinely starting to question whether I was going to make it out. I can't lie, I was scared. But then I got lucky. Like, really lucky. To this point, I had not been passed by a single soul that was descending South Kaibab. The moonlight was bright enough for you to see your shadow, but the trail was deserted. But as I trudged miserably upward, about a half mile from Cedar Ridge now, I suddenly saw a light on the trail, followed by a hello coming from the darkness. Right there in the middle of the trail was a man and woman with all of their supplies laid out around them. It was clear they had been there for a while. Turns out the woman was having her own troubles, and they were basically camping out after calling for help. She seemed to be okay, though. She was standing and speaking coherently at that point. I sheepishly, almost embarrassingly, asked them if they had any water that they could spare. As I did so, I could not believe the weakness of my voice as I heard it in my head. Turns out these 2 trail angels did have plenty of water, and they gave me a few liters, allowing me to fully refill my bladder and bottle. After taking a few swigs, my stomach almost immediately rejected it, and I vomited right there on the side of the trail like I never have before. I still felt absolutely awful. I thanked this couple profusely and went on my way. I'm sure they got out okay. They were attempting Bright Angel to South Kaibab, but there was no rescue party that passed me as I continued my ascent. The canyon can be a brutal and unforgiving environment. With my water situation resolved, I continued upward, but my body was not cooperating. I had been eating salty and sweet snacks until I got to the river, but going up South Kaibab, I couldn't stomach the thought of eating anything else. Probably another mistake. I stopped at Cedar Ridge, a mile and a half from the top, for about 15 minutes, but was still having those awful thoughts of wondering if I was going to make it. Cedar to the top is not nearly the hardest part of South Kaibab, but it seemed impossible to me. A few more steps up from Cedar, another bout of intense vomiting. More worrying. More questioning how I could have ever been so careless to put myself in this situation. More respect for the canyon and the danger it can put even seasoned hikers in if they aren't careful. Just a little bit farther and I hit Uwa Point. Another stop on the flat rock by the sign where this time I laid down for 10 minutes or so. Still feeling awful. But that water I was able to sip, what if I didn't have it? And how fortunate was I to come across those folks below Cedar. A final push. The last switchbacks. I finally made it. So relieved. My plan had always been to walk out to the road since there's not supposed to be any private vehicle access to the South Kaibab trailhead. But when I was finally able to reach my wonderful wife, who had already been kind enough to do the long drive around from the North Rim to pick me up, and she heard the condition I was in, she met me in the quiet South Kaibab parking lot around 11:30 p.m. I was relieved to be out, but still feeling as rotten as ever. We began the long drive back to Phoenix, and after a couple of terrible hours, I started to feel better about an hour from home. It took me 2 full days to start feeling like myself again. Can't wait to get back, though. So there you have it. That was word for word my account of an experience that was horrible for me. I know people have had much worse experiences than that. But man, what a wake-up call that was for me personally. And I think all of us probably have, if you spend a lot of time in the canyon, you probably have at least somewhat of a similar story to that. If it didn't happen to you, you probably have passed people on the trail who are having those kind of issues. But man, the heat is no joke. Was it dehydration, blood sugar, heat, exertion, a combination? I mean, I'll never know for sure, but what I do know for sure is I should have had twice the water I did for the hike out. I can't even tell you the feeling I had when I suddenly realized that I was almost out of water, knowing exactly how far I still had to go. Honestly, I feel like I got very, very lucky. If I'd not run into those people below Cedar Ridge, not sure how I would have made it. I'll beat myself up over this for a long time. I have beat myself up over it for a long time. But it's a mistake I won't make again. And it is my sincere hope that by sharing this somewhat embarrassing experience, it might help someone avoid doing what I did. So there is an experience I would not wish on anyone. All these months later, I'm still not exactly sure what happened. The heat must have had something to do with it. Running out of water, obviously, that's a nightmare scenario. Doing it in the summer. Man, so even when you plan it out, and I planned to do this thing so that I avoided the heat of the day, and I tried to avoid the direct sunlight, but I still ran into trouble. And going up South Kaibab and not having the safety net of going up Bright Angel and having water at Havasupai Gardens, 3-mile rest house, 1.5-mile rest house. I mean, that's a perfect example there. Why, if you're questioning whether you should go up South Kaibab or Bright Angel, well, if you've never hiked in the canyon, I would say definitely go up Bright Angel because you do have those safety nets there. But what an experience it was. Again, I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I do hope that you found some value in listening to this, and I appreciate you guys listening to the podcast and listening to this story. All right, if you do find value in these episodes, we sure would appreciate a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening on. That helps us get the show to more people and helps us in our mission to help everyone have their best possible experience hiking the Grand Canyon. For all kinds of valuable Canyon resources, including videos, this podcast, and our all-new Grand Canyon Shade Tracker, which we haven't officially announced yet, but you can try it out. It's an interactive map that shows you exactly where and when you'll have shade on your Grand Canyon hike every minute of every hour of every day of the year. It is like magic. It is awesome, and it was definitely partially inspired by the experience that I just shared with you. Go to brightangeloutfitters.com for all of that. While you're there, take a peek at our t-shirts, sweatshirts, and hoodies, including the famous Victor Vomit tee. I was my own Victor Vomit on that hike, and an entire Rim2Rim collection as well. Again, that's at brightangeloutfitters.com. We do it for the love of the canyon. My name is Brian Special, encouraging you, as always, to go hike the canyon. Take that first step, embrace the journey, and when you get there, whether you're concerned with time goals or taking your time, just hike your own hike and enjoy every step of one of the most magnificent hikes on the planet. We'll see you next time on the Grand Canyon Hiker Dude Show, presented by Bright Angel Outfitters.